hopefully when we go out on that stage and we bring our swag and we bring our confidence, like it'll show and we'll win.
Hey guys, this is Pedro back with another interview covering VCT Americas Kickoff 2025. For this occasion, I'm here accompanied once again by valyn, the IGO of G2 Esports. This time at the start of the 2025 season, looking to continue the momentum from 2024 into 2025 and all that jazz. And so, valyn, thank you so much for another chance. This time at the start of the year, as I've been saying so far. And so, want to ask you just sort of what's been the off season like for you? You know, you guys finally added JAWGEMO into the team. You guys had some time to compete in a few off season events. You know, playing a spotlight series, winning that, moving over to the holiday season, celebrating that, and then now focusing on to the start of kickoff. So, how's that whole process been like for you?
Yeah, this off season was definitely a journey for me. I traveled a lot in Europe. We had a long boot camp in Europe actually for the first spotlight tournament. We were playing with Mimi, Vanya, myself, Trent, and Jogamo. That was like a fun little tournament that we prepped for, and then we went on to playing the Red Bull in Berlin. That was also a fun event with the full team, and we got some good exposure, some good film. Um, we had some good wins and some tough losses in that, so that was like a good way to get some of the the little niches out, stuff like that. And from there, had a great holiday break, much needed for myself and for the rest of the guys. And from here on out, we're just prepping 2025. A lot of practice. Tejo's coming in the mix, so we've been nonstop grinding right now, trying to catch up to the meta, make sure that we're coming into 2025 VCT as strong as we can. And I would say the process has been pretty good. I feel confident.
Yeah, you said it right then and there. Had that voice break, so I'm gonna let it simmer there, right there. You mentioned a little. You mentioned right there and then there, like Tejo and the addition of that agent, in addition to Fracture and Lotus getting into the map pool. I mean, at this point, you know what with what we know about Valorant, they're having to see these changes going in right before the start of an event, customary. You know, the
Love that.
usual kind of jazz. And so, still though, like I want to ask you just sort of your thoughts on those three things. You know, what's been the biggest like things that has been affected, or more so things that has been changed with these three things getting into the meta.
Yeah, so I would say a lot of people started playing like before Tejo, there's a lot of Vi's coming in, a lot of new comps that people were playing. And there was slowly a new meta starting to develop within the off season because like the neon nerfs happened and everyone started picking up more Yoru. But once Tejo got added into the mix, like it feels like a complete reset now. And there's about a week between about 2 weeks between the patch drop and the VCT season. So it's kind of like an arms race, like who's going to get there first, right? You got Fracture coming back. Lotus is making its short return. It hasn't been out for too long. Um, and yeah, I mean, I I think Teo's a great agent. I think we're going to see a lot of it in this kickoff event. Um, on some specific maps. Don't want to dive too deep because I'm in the race as well. But I think this is a unique challenge for a lot of these teams. Everyone is in the same boat where you don't have much time to implement this agent. Everyone's trying to get it to the best of their ability as fast as possible. So who's going to be the one to really make it best? And I think that team is going to be uh, in the, at least safe to say, probably like the top four of the kickoff. I think winning the kickoff, making sure you qualify to Masters Bangkok, comes down to more than just implementing Teo. It comes down to your team dynamics, who's putting in the most work in the off season. I kind of learned this last year. Like, Sentinels last year had a great off season going into Americas, and they just took off with that momentum. I think this year it's NRG who like won back-to-back off season tournaments, so they have a lot of momentum coming in. Um, but but yeah, man, I'm excited to see how everything shakes out, and yeah, Tejo's interesting.
Well, I gotta ask you about the agent. Do you feel it's gonna be very present in like matches in VCT Americas?
Yeah, I think it'll be present for sure. I mean, his abilities are very flexible, and so and there's a lot of damage output out of this agent. So I think it's something that can be slotted in relatively easily, and so even with the short time frame between the matches and the patch, I think people are going to implement them pretty quick.
Yeah, of course. And now, kind of pivoting back over into the off season, I want to ask you sort of like, you know, since you said like you had some time to kind of go through the off season, have to play events and all that stuff. What has been some of the biggest like takeaways that you saw in terms of trying to tweak things, amplify things, improve things from like the end of champions and that disappointing like lower bracket, 7th to 8th place finish and through there and up until now.
Um, bringing in a new player like JAWGEMO, there's going to be different challenges and different things you have to focus on because every player, there's always new like issues that happen. And so when we were playing some of the off-season tournaments like Red Bull, I would say some of our problems were that we were trying to be too explosive and like trying to end the rounds too fast sometimes. And maybe that makes sense because you bring in a guy like Jagamo who really wants to get in their face and get aggressive, and you mix it in with like our slow, methodical style that we were known for last year. And sometimes you're gonna have some hiccups when you don't flush things out. And so we took those losses and reviewed the film and kind of thought to ourselves like, why are we choosing these decisions in these moments? What are the comms like? Because when you add in a new guy, the dynamics shift a lot. It's underrated how much one person can change a team. And I know this because I've always had like the teams I've been a part of or have always been like one roster changes, not like rebuilds or multiple changes. So I know even one bringing in one new guy can change things. And so we've been just working on our calm dynamics, making sure everything's on point, integrating Alex into our kind of system, but also maintaining what he's known for and his flashiness. So it's like you're trying to mix the yin and the yang together. And so those are all its own unique challenges that we've had opened our eyes during the off season. And so we've just been patching that up while working on the new meta. And hopefully, that's enough to push us into that top two and come kickoff because we definitely want our international revenge because last year was disappointing, but I think this time come around we'll be able to lift the trophy.
Well, like I want to give a little bit of a sidestep onto just that. I mean, like going into champions, I remember like during the attending the press conference, and obviously the team was like not in the best mental shape, and you kind of like tried to talk as much as you could, while with that result fresh in mind. I want to ask you just sort of really quick, what happened like in champions, especially like in that those two matches against I think Fnatic at the very end. I can't remember the first one off the top of my head.
Yeah. Those 2 champ matches, I think, after spending some time thinking about it and just processing it over the time, I think it just came down to the other team being more confident and more aggressive than us. Fnatic, for example, come map 1 was, taking fights together in our face, putting the pressure on us right away. And I thought we were a team that was being too reactive to that. We weren't matching their pressure. We weren't matching their confidence. And so, um, I think that can be able like I don't know. It's hard to say like why we played that way because some matches we come out swinging, but I think it just comes down to like pressure of champions and being on that stage for the first time in Korea was uh, maybe a bit hard for us playing against those level of teams. But we learn from it, and I understand what teams are going to try to do to us come those match times now. And adding in a player like Jogamo who brings in that kind of ignorance and that X factor confidence, whatever you want to call it, like that guy in the server definitely helps spark all of us up because when he has one big round and early in a series, it kind of boosts the confidence, boosts the morale on the whole team, and that's how you get flowing, you get in flow state, and you just start winning. So I think it'll the recipe's there for this year.
Yeah, like with the addition of Jogimo into G2 now, basically everybody in their mode is kind of saying like, "Oh, G2's got to be they got to be number one. They gotta like at the very least make grand finals and stuff like that." Vast contrast compared to back then at the start of the year, in which you guys were fresh into tier one, or more so returning to tier one after winning the
Hmm.
Ascension, and basically people saying, "Oh, gee, I mean, maybe it's somewhere in the middle of the table." So
Yeah.
what I want to ask you, Valen, is the what do you think has been the biggest obstacle that you feel G2 is going to have to take on at the start of the year, and with the pressure and all the expectations in mind?
Yeah, I would say like pressure and expectations, at least from the outside point of view, don't really affect us as a team. Um, we know that this is like this is VCT at the end of the day. Every team deserves to be here. Every player deserves to be here, and so critics and fans are always going to say this team should be number one, this team should be this. But we all know that on paper and stuff like that, it doesn't really matter. And I've made that clear to my guys too. Hey, we brought in Jogamo, we brought in a world champ. That doesn't mean Jack, that doesn't mean anything as well for us. Like as much as I say that to the fans, like, "Oh, it doesn't matter," I'm bringing it into my team culture as well, where, if you wanna win, you gotta put in the work. It doesn't matter what god squad you have created, it doesn't matter what experience you've done last year. If you don't put in the same work you did last year and more, you're gonna fall behind. And so, I've just been making sure that's very clear to my guys, making sure that we don't get overconfident, we don't look at the critics and take the pressure on us, "Oh, dude, we gotta be number 1, like, look at what everyone's saying." We know what we have to do if we wanna be number 1, and we've been working on those goals in the offseason. And it is very difficult. Every year is really hard. There's a new meta developing. No one knows what's going to be good in 2025. There's no footage of anybody. There's new Ascension team. Everyone's improving. And so I'm humble enough to understand that and accept that. But I'm also confident enough to think that the processes that we're developing in practice, the things we're working on, will lead us into that position eventually. Um, but yeah, man, I think, dude, for all we know, like 2 game coming out Ascension could be number 1. Like we did it last year's Ascension. You never know these things because everyone's good, man. And so we're just trying to do our best to control the things that we can control within our practice environment. And hopefully, when we go out on that stage and we bring our swag and we bring our confidence, like it'll show and we'll win.
Of course, definitely looking forward to seeing continuation of G2 with the form and of course the most important, I would say, the swag. And with that said, I'm gonna wrap up the interview right here. Since we're out of time. So Valyn, thank you so much for the conversation. Hope I can talk to you again in some capacity later on down the line. And of course, best of luck goes to you in kickoff.
Thank you, Pedro. Take care, man.